Thank you everyone for joining us today for another exciting panel we have prepared for you during the INATBA Digital Blockchain Week. The name of the panel is called What Skills Will Be Needed in Permissionless Public Blockchains, Different Perspectives on Training, Learning, and Living. I'm very excited to welcome here our speakers, moderator, and also co-chair of INATBA's Education Working Group. We will have a short presentation from the co-chair, from Wim Stolmans, and then we will continue with a panel discussion moderated by Katarina Adam. So without any further ado, I would like to give the floor to Wim to start the session and tell you a little more about what the working group has been working on and what are its plans for the future. Wim, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bara. And first of all, congratulations to the executive team for the organization of this whole week. Must have been a huge job. Bara, can I share my screen?
Yes, you can.
Check. 1 second, please. So thank you everyone for joining this panel discussion taken care of by the Education Working Group. Before we get into the panel discussion, I would like to give you a little insight in what the Education Working Group has been doing in the past, and also what we are working on currently. I'll also put in the chat the links to our previous work, so in the hope that it might be of use to some of you or even all of you. So my name is Wim Stolmans. Together with Chiara Ventura, I have the pleasure of serving as co-chairs of the Education Working Group. And so together with my colleagues today, with Katarina Adam and other members of the working group, we will be discussing future skills, blockchain skills, specifically focused on the citizen and the individual. I'll leave the introduction of the other panelists to Katarina, moderator of the session. To give you just a few highlights of what the Education Working Group has been doing in the past, we had the opportunity to contribute to a revision of the European classification of skills, competences, occupations, and qualifications. So that was a broad review, but also an opportunity to introduce definitions for occupations and skills related to blockchain. And so the Education Working Group had an important contribution to what has been published in the meantime. As I said before, I will be sharing the links with you in the chat after my presentation. Some other work that we have been doing, a previous paper which discussed a blockchain curriculum that we matched against occupations. Now, this matching and the whole approach was done from the point of view of corporations. So what you see here in front of you, the matrix, is the result of thorough work done by the members of the Education Working Group in this paper. And so we match occupations with different blockchain topics, and we also put in there the level of mastery that we think would be necessary on this matching point. Okay. That paper you can also find on the website of INATBA. Again, I'll share the link soon. Then recently we also participated, and we are a member of the consortium called CHAISE, which is a consortium that concentrates on the development of a blockchain skills strategy for Europe. And so we had the opportunity to formulate our recommendations, which you can see here in front of you. I won't enter into detail, but we had the opportunity to recommend 5 strategies for this skills development approach for Europe. And then the work that we are doing right now, so this is an upcoming paper. We hope that we will be able to publish by the end of January. And so here, in contrast to our previous paper, where the point of view was more from corporate side, here we take the point of view of the individual, of the citizen. And so we do a thought experiment in this paper where we imagine a hypothetical world of public permissionless blockchains. And so the question that we ask is, okay, what could be the utility for individuals, for citizens of such a hypothetical citizen-centric Web3? And then, very important, what would be the skills that citizens, individuals would need in order to be able to profit from that public permissionless infrastructure? And so a quick preview, we describe what we think could be the utility for citizens. We have one category, the everyday, personal everyday utility, and then a second category, the professional utility. And then on the skills, we match those 2 categories. What skills would citizens need in order to be able to profit from those everyday personal utilities from that hypothetical infrastructure of only public permissionless blockchains? And then on the professional level also, what would be the skills that the citizen, the individual, would need in order to profit again from those utilities? I won't enter too much into detail. Very possibly it will be part of the panel discussion. So that's a little bit, I think this is my last slide, and it is a little bit the material that I can share with you. As said, I'll post the links in the chat for your reference. And with that, I'm going to hand over to our moderator, or going back to Bara.
No, I think let's go directly to Katarina, our moderator, because she has way more interesting things to say and ask than me. But
probably
Katarina,
not to
please.
say. Thank you so much, Bara. Not to say, but to ask, because we have very, very good speaker here at the panel. And therefore, first of all, welcome all of you. I'm very happy to moderate this event, and I'm very glad to participate in this regard, that I can ask the panelists this interesting question I forwarded somehow. And I would like now to go deeper into the discussion. But before we do so, I would prefer that our panelists will introduce themselves in a very quick, short manner, just that we have an idea who is who. And therefore, first of all, I would like to start. Almudena, I see you here at the screen. Would you please be so kind and introduce yourself? Oh, I can't hear you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much for INATBA for the invitation, and Katarina. It's a pleasure to be with you. I think this is a very important topic for the development in the proper way of the Web3 blockchain and the metaverse in Europe. I have been working on blockchain since 2015, very specifically on training since 2017. We created Blockchain Intelligence, which is a center that both develops and we also act as consultants. But we have a very important vertical, which is our training center. And we have developed a certification, which we do with the Spanish bar, and it's already on its 26th edition. So it's been already a while since we're working on this, and since the 22nd edition, we have also implemented an educational metaverse for these professional trainings. And we train both business people, regulators and supervisors, and legal and compliance. We have a blockchain law institute where we focus both on the training side, but also on the think tank side, on regulatory, legal, and compliance issues related to blockchain, Web3, and metaverse.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very interesting. And I will come back because I have many questions. And Joyce, would you please be so kind and introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you very much, Katrina. And thank you for asking me to be involved in this panel. It's a great pleasure to be with you and the rest of our colleagues. As you know, I've recently joined INATBA and the working group, and I'm excited about the work that Will has so clearly presented. My background is in academic and research, and the founding president of the National College of Ireland. My journey in blockchain commenced around the same time as you, Alimanda, in 2015. I set up or co-founder of a group called BlockW, a woman-led organization whose focus was on creating awareness about blockchain, promoting diversity and inclusion, and creating pathways to education and training. I've also been involved as chair of the Blockchain Ireland Education Skills and Innovation Group, and more recently have been actively involved with the Economic and Social Research Institute with the EU CHAISE project, particularly looking on skills, demand, supply and mismatch.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And with this, I think we can start directly into the discussion, because Lisa, as she wrote, she is not able to attend. Unfortunately, she has poor internet connection, and she was very, very unhappy that it just too poor. So therefore, we'll just start our discussion. And while I hear what kind of interesting backgrounds you have, I would really like to know, or I would like to cluster our discussion into three segments. Segment one should be like what's going on currently in the environment, in the overall environment. Sector two could be education itself. What kind of education is required that we can pull in more people into the overall scenario? And last but not least, your recommendations. So what would you recommend that we all can learn from? And with this, I would like to kick off the question, what's going on currently? And I guess we all have heard FTX, how this is harming in many regards the overall, let's say, industry. And that is my question. Is this so? Is this really a harm? Or what do you think? What do we need to learn out of this catastrophic event? I would like to ask you, Almudena, what is your impression?
Well, I think unfortunately FTX, yes, is influencing very strongly the whole environment and the ecosystem and the products and the technology itself as well. But it's quite unfair, because actually the issues related to FTX are rather, let's say, traditional commercial law related issues, are corporate governance issues, and are fraud related issues, which are not so much linked to either crypto or exchanges or of course, in any case, the technology. But it is a fact that, you know, it's having a huge impact. And actually, the main one is that regulators are focusing all around the world. And I think Europe has been pioneering the regulatory actions regarding specifically crypto assets and services related to crypto assets through the MiCA regulation, but the rest of the world was a bit behind Europe in this. And I think maybe the positive side of it is that we're going to get more harmonized and coordinated regulatory and supervisory action regarding crypto assets and the services related to crypto assets. So there is always a bad and a positive and a negative side to everything. And I prefer to look at it from that perspective, and also maybe educating consumers and investors, consumer investors, to really look into what they, where they invest and their money, and eventually it's an opportunity to teach everyone and to bring to everyone's head how important it is that you understand where you invest your money and maybe make the right questions before letting anyone have your investment, your personal budget or your personal investment.
Thank you. Not your key, not your coin. So
Yes,
exactly.
We've learned this, and I guess many of us learned this by the hard way. And Joyce, so as we've seen that this is obviously something like a traditional business model transferred to the crypto world somehow, and now harming the crypto world in a very bad way. So what kind of education would you roll out that we can better differentiate between, the business model itself, the crypto world, and what is, and beside crypto, we are talking about blockchain. Blockchain is much more than just crypto. So how can we kick off the education? What was your suggestion, especially in regard to this scandal?
Well, I think Almunda has really created that context in terms of, this is about investment, people's knowledge and so on. But I take the view that it's a really good opportunity. Say, for example, particularly in Ireland, there is always that skepticism about blockchain because it has been linked to scandals unfairly, perhaps, but that's the public perception. So I think we hear this, unfortunately, if you like, is dominating the headlines. And there's a total kind of interaction between crypto, blockchain, and other applications. But I see it as a real opportunity to create that vision. I think what we're talking about in our working group about what blockchain can do, what its impact it is, what on both society, individuals, and business, and that it gives us a great opportunity. In terms of education and the message, I really think it would be absolutely marvellous if all member states, or even if EU, because I take the point that we're leading in regulation, but we took the view that we communicate clearly what blockchain is, what it has achieved, and there are really good examples. So I'd love to see a communication campaign, an awareness campaign that builds on that and doesn't actually reference, FXT, because I don't think we should kind of work through those issues, because it's been well documented, as you said. This is, if you like, a related to issues that happened even with Lehman's in the, in the more fiat side of things. So I think, we could start with that vision, start with that communication. And the EU has taken the view very strongly through its digital agenda that blockchain technology is something that they support, which they see Europe can become a central leader for. So I think there are positives to it if we take that proactive, positive message of what blockchain can do.
That sounds like a recommendation. We'll keep this for the end. So that is, from my understanding, really a very good recommendation that we should take this in mind and push this forward. So I'm completely with you in this regard, Joyce. But coming back to what you said, that this is a great opportunity, and Modena, you were also on the same page to say, well, we can do something out of this. So I have some doubts in regard to we, as we all are here, we have an understanding, a mutual understanding of what blockchain can deliver. We see the opportunities, we see all the beautiness inside of this technology. But on the other side, right now, many people, and I guess you have seen the same situation in your among your colleagues, they are now coming around, and at least at my university, and they're telling me, told you, this is completely nonsense and no one needs this. So, and right now what I see, and here I need your guidance, what would you suggest what we can do if we take this scenario, what we see today, and now how to educate people. Because what I see that even colleagues of mine, well, I think that they are pretty well educated, but they also are jumping on prejudice. They are jumping on buzzwords which they can't explain. So how can we create an environment, and this is kind of a part of an educational journey we have to take into consideration, what is required to bring more knowledge, really knowledge inside, and what is needed. And in this regard, I would also like to ask you, what do you think in regard to a public permissionless blockchain? What kind of opportunities you'll see in this, not in the private, more in the public? So probably some of your thoughts. What is your idea? To crack up the silos we have the guys who have that deep knowledge, and we have too many people who have no or just a little bit knowledge. And how can we merge these two, let's say, parties together?
Should I jump on it? Well, I think, of course, awareness is hard work. So I would say let us all get out and have these type of discussions and get out maybe of our ecosystems, which are very blockchain related, and go and speak to other people. What we have done since 2017-18 at Blockchain Intelligence and the Blockchain Law Institute in the think tank part is to create what we call labs, where we invite individuals from different perspectives or backgrounds, more technical ones, regulators, supervisors, sociologists, philosophers, different disciplines, to discuss about very specific issues. We have thematic or very specific labs for different issues. We talk about governance, we talk about cryptocurrencies, we talk about metaverse and ethics, we talk, and depending on, what's more maybe the current issue or the hot topic, maybe, more of one kind of the labs need more or whatever. But this is very important, because I think this is very important and has been very important in our environment, very, very much in the Spanish and Latin America regulatory environment, to first, like kind of lower prejudices, that maybe it was slowly being less and less the case, but it used to be very strongly the case. So people had cryptocurrencies or blockchain and were, thinking that it was all about fraud and deep web and all this in the past. Then we had a very nice development, and now this FTX scandal is all, again, bringing some fears. But this, in our experience, was very good, because key thought leaders and people that are key to break, specific barriers to the development of the blockchain technology kind of got on board. And they got on board because they understood, how it works, what are the differences between a technology and the use you make of the technology. And this can be good and bad, exactly the same as in any other industry. And the question is, how do we organize our societies to protect ourselves from the bad players? And for that reason, we have regulation and supervisors, or maybe also an educated society that also keeps that, in its place. So I think this was a very, very good, we had a very good experience with that. Of course, training courses, maybe talking about blockchain in more regular standard education environments, at basic university training, professional training for regulators, and even at school. So that people understand. I think the way to avoid false barriers, mental barriers coming out of scandals like FTX or others, is understanding the technology. So we need to make an effort, because this technology has some level of complexity, and specifically humanistic people coming from rather humanistic backgrounds tend to, dislike learning this because it's kind of very technical and difficult in the beginning and all this. So we need to break that starting barrier and getting them on board by letting them understand and use cases, because once you see use cases that bring value to society, then you see the point.
Yeah. And I'd like to support that very much. For example, there's two things, maybe just taking up your point on Monday on the, getting use cases and people being involved. One of the things that Block W did was to contact, policymakers and politicians. We've in our Senate and our Parliament, and we had, presentations on use cases that opened their minds to the possibility. But we got advice from one of the senators who said, listen, if you want to make an impact, don't talk about the technology, talk about something that these people are interested in, and they're interested in jobs. And what we did working with the SRI and the EU CHAISE project was to produce a 2-page leaflet that summarized all these issues. And it was called, blockchain jobs, what policymakers need to know. And that was circulated to all politicians. The one thing I'd say is you can't just stop there. It's constant. It's bringing people in. I like your ideas of the labs. We need to create that ecosystem that's more accessible, that people can kind of work through. And I also think that, the issue about regulation is important. What's happening in Europe, let them know that, because they don't really know. The ordinary citizen, policymakers, nobody really knows unless people are interested. But what's happening, and I think we should kind of come on the back of it, Europe is very, very focused on the digital Europe and digital assets. And they're very clear, we're going to get that in the next 2 to 3 years. But they're also talking, well, they were a couple of months ago, but there is a real opportunity to show that this regulatory environment is going to now embrace these other assets, these other crypto assets, in a way that will try and address the issues that have happened recently. So I think, it is, it's a bit of a cliche. It is all about engagement. It is all about taking different groups, spending time with them. And then for the broader citizens, what I'm a great believer in? The mothers of Ireland. I think we need to be talking to the mothers of Ireland who have 8, 9, 10-year-olds and get them interested in it, show them how it can make the world a better place. And the same with teachers. So I think there's all these array of initiatives that need to be taken. But the key thing, I'm a great believer in this myself, having a vision and a mission and clarifying that. And I think that's what INATBA can do, give this overall vision and then have all the different groups that are operating and inputting into it, both on a European level and obviously global level, but on a European level, and then member states, because it's going to take time. People don't understand, they don't want to understand. And, problem solving, if you can show that something's going to solve a problem, then I think there will be traction. I mean, it's interesting, when Europe again is talking about digital identity, what platform are they going to use for that digital identity? So there's lots of opportunities that we can join the debate, but it's that lack of cohesion, integration and coordination between all the bodies that really, I think, makes the difference. And it may be one thing, Katharina, that you might think about, bringing people together, even if it's only a small group, to make that difference in different regions. I think it will have an impact, but it's going to take time.
Okay, and I'm not very patient, so therefore this is sometimes But beside this, let's come back to the discussion, because that's very, very interesting what you are talking, what kind of, I'd like to say, kind of vision you are offering us here in this panel discussion, because how can we use this? And again, you talked about labs, you talked about let's make small groups that we can talk and that we can then enhance this and move it forward, so to embrace more and more and more people. And so I would like to, and because of what you two mentioned, I would like to first create a kind of a hypothesis, which is, again, like you said, why should we talk about the technology, which is a back-end technology? Probably it is more crispier, more interesting, more appealing for people when we talk about the outcome. What can be done in this regard? But then this could be kind of a contradiction from my understanding, because this could also lead to an issue where we again see the spread between the guys who knows what they are talking about, how to apply this complex technology and how to develop this complex technology further and further. And on the other side, only, please forgive me, people with the or with a focus on what the outcome is, and this is nice and great. So how could we overcome this? And probably here I would like to invite Wim. Wim, you are in our working group, you are the one who is always waving the banner for the public permissionless blockchain. Probably you also can bring in some ideas of how can we integrate public permission blockchain, plus, and that is the super heavy task right now, how to bridge between the deep tech understanding people versus the ones who just focusing what the outcome might be.
So thank you, Katerina, and thank you, Almudena and Joyce, for joining this panel discussion. A lot has been said. Now, what I would like to add is that, and it joins different conclusions that have been made by Almudena and Joyce. So there is this outcome which can be a means for people to get interested. Now, I think it's also important for people to realize the systemic nature of the technology. So it has been said that it's not that important to talk about the technology, but more about what it means for people and their environment. Now, I think it's first of all important to understand what the, between quotation marks, legacy systemic fabric is. People need, first of all, to understand where they come from. And then and then I come to your question, Katerina, through the public permissionless aspect of blockchains, show how that socio-economic fabric in which they live and evolve can also be something completely different, in which they possibly have more autonomy, more responsibility, also more decision power, instead of having blockchains be functional for traditional corporations and centralized models. Show how that decentralized infrastructure and that decentralized socioeconomic environment can help the individual, the citizen, to be empowered. So yeah, am I answering your question, Katerina?
Yes, and I'm just developing this what you are talking about just a bit more further into, let's say, a provocative question to my panelists, which is about, I would like to ask you about the value of education. What is the value of education? And more specifically, how would you define the value of blockchain education? Can you give us an overview or some thoughts, some ideas? And again, I would like to start with Joyce. Joyce, what would you see?
Yeah, I think, you know, in today's society, we have to understand what education is, if you like. I think all of us see education as lifelong learning. But one of the problems with our structures is that they structure it around different age phases and different levels. Mm-hmm. So I think there is an importance of the integration, not only of, you know, blockchain, understanding of blockchain, but really it's about emerging technologies. And I actually think when you talk to people in education, policymakers, discussing emerging technologies, how they're changing, what an impact it'll have on people's lives, and what Vima said, how it's going to alter how we make decisions, how we do things, how we take control of our lives. So I actually believe that in an education, certainly from my experience, including blockchain within the context of emerging technologies, of saying to people, we do not know at the moment how these are going to fully develop. We don't know what the skills involved are, but there are certain things that we do know, and integrate them into right away across the curriculum, so that, you know, we're living in a digital age. Again, it's a bit of a cliche, but understanding that technology, maybe not at a technical level, but at, you know, in terms of oversight, impact, and what it can do. So I think that that's very, very important. In terms of the value of blockchain education, I think it opens people's minds to the possibilities, whether it's the public permissionless blockchain, and what that future is going to be like. And in some ways, you know, maybe what some commentators have called the playlist generation, who are beginning to organize things for themselves anyway, that they're ready for this. They're ready because that's the way they want to organize themselves. They don't want to be organized centrally and by various groups. It's other generations that have worked through very centralized education systems, very clear undergraduate, postgraduate, doctorate, research, or whatever work, but things have changing. So this is the value of blockchain. It's showing the possibilities for the future and how we as individuals, as citizens, can have more power over our lives. But there are other strands to it as well, as we know, but that is an important message. And I think we may have followers and we don't know we have them, because that's the way they're thinking, because it is about a mindset.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just stumbling upon your name. Almudena, what is your idea about the value of education itself and the value of blockchain education?
Well, following on Wim's comments, and also I'm reading the chat discussions, and I agree very strongly with Ismael. I think this is the dimension. The difficulty here is that the dimension of impact that blockchain technology is bringing to society and to all of us as individuals is huge. Is as huge as internet was in the 90s, which changed completely the way we related, our access to information, the way we communicate, and the way we create business models. So very, very strong change of society. And blockchain is at the level of change that internet created. And what we are created through blockchain is new systems, new relational systems, or new ways to relate to each other and to exchange value. And in that respect, the way these environments are built is quite essential. So there are aspects to the technology that have to do with governance that are actually very relevant. And that's, I think, the difficulty, that we cannot stay in the surface. And whereas, I mean, while I'm pretty fond of always using examples, learning by doing, going to the use cases, but I don't think we can leave the deeper understanding of what blockchain is, because the impact of the way blockchains are built from a technical point of view have a huge impact on governance and have a huge impact on how our rights in these new relational systems and exchange of value systems are developing. So sorry for this big long introduction, but what I'm trying to say is that I believe that education around blockchain needs some sort of deepness, and it needs, as I said before, and it's our approach also to focus on different types of backgrounds. So have more technical, business, and humanistic, because we are changing the way we relate. And this is all about the digital Europe, it's about a digital society, it's about our rights, our privacy in a digital world. It's about the European approach in terms of values in this new society. So how do we do it? How do we do it? We were talking before about citizens and awareness, because these citizens are going to use games, for instance, or metaverses or services, or are going to use exchanges and invest their money in a cryptocurrency or whatever. And there is a huge difference in which blockchain they are selecting to do these things. How privacy is impacted by the blockchain, whether there is a centralized service, even if it's using blockchain, but then its blockchain is as an asset, but then or in the exchange of value, but then at some certain level you're using a centralized service like an exchange, like FTX, for instance. So if you don't understand to a certain level this complexity, then you might take the wrong decisions, and it has some actual impact in citizens' lives. So I think education is pretty important. Supervision of services and products is very important, because to the level where education doesn't get, there needs to be some sort of protection from regulators and supervisors, and deeply understanding the differences between public permissions, private blockchains, governance, levels of governance, validation systems, and all this is pretty actually important. And it's a change of our society as we develop into a very digital society. So I really think we need to invest and devote time and effort to blockchain education.
Wim, I would also like to see your point of view. And before Wim, I invite you to share your thoughts with us. There's Meryl, she's agreeing with what you said, but on the other side, she's also mentioning that it's important to have, let's say, low barrier entry or access points where people really can, jump easy on the train. What probably could be hard for all of us is the complexity of the community, or not the community, the complexity of the technology itself, because every step that I make has some consequences. If I decide for this and that infrastructure with this and that consensus protocol, so what does this mean for my business model? Can I do what I want to do? What about privacy? What about scalability? What about all these niceties we're talking about? And here the idea maybe should be also to create more little chunks that people can easier digest, and that will make them curious. But beside this, and this is kind of a recommendation which is not my part as a moderator, but Wim, please be so kind and help us also with your thoughts. The value of education and the value of blockchain education. What are your ideas, your thoughts?
Again, a lot have been said. I can only add that we are evolving in a novel space where things have to be discovered. And I can also only join a proposition made by Almudena, or what she and her educational environment already uses, is the labs. Here in Luxembourg, with the Luxembourg Blockchain Lab, we intend also to bring together companies and have kind of a neutral, because often it's difficult to bring companies together in a consortium and make them together, but have as neutral as possible a playground where companies can start discussing specific elements that are of interest to them, and that could be taken care of by blockchain. So what I heard from CHAISE and Almudena is that it's of huge importance, the value of blockchain education specifically, in order to make the right decisions, in order to not get lost, in order to be able to navigate that new environment, and also especially being aware of the discovery role that one can play. This is an environment where new business models can be invented, where new operational processes become possible. So that's also an element that people should be aware of when they start their blockchain education, that they are an actor themselves and an innovator, potential innovator themselves.
Thank you.
Maybe Katrina. Also, I was mentioning in the chat creativity, because we actually have the technology and it brings many opportunities, but we still need to develop many of those. And the more you understand, the more and also depending on the way education is performed, if it's promoting and enhancing creativity, I think this is very important to extract the value of the technology.
Yeah. And Katrina, could I ask the question that, we're looking at the education, as I said, as a lifelong, process and different stages. But within that, and I think Wim mentioned it at the beginning, we are developing, and the US is developing as well, our skills taxonomies for different groups and so on. And there perhaps that intervention on the individual level and the citizens level is slightly different than in a pure education environment. And I think there's an opportunity there, how we do it in a flexible way within, I always think it's good to do it in a framework. Skills can't be seen, just do this or do that, and just purely learning by doing. They need to understand that context that we talked about. But I just wonder, and it's something obviously we're looking at, how we can create a taxonomy about these skills for the future and codify them or put them in a way that are easily accessible to people at different stages of that learning cycle.
This sounds, again, thank you so much for a very good recommendation for the end. And we are somehow approaching our end. So therefore, I have one more question I would fire away and require probably a quick answer from you guys. It's, do you expect that people who are not sufficiently educated will experience disadvantages in the future in regard to, let's say, their personal life, their way, how they can get things done, how they do their work, what kind of opportunities they get? Yeah. What is your opinion? Do you think that they can fall behind somehow?
Yeah, I think, of course, and this really a big issue at the moment for Europe and all member states, including Ireland, because I think, as Amanda said, we're living in a digital society, digital economy, and there is a divide. And the key thing is that is a real task-oriented thing. How do you intervene at, often they call it lower level skills, that's the bigger divide. And some of the studies show that it's easier, there's a high percentage of people, in higher level skills, but that this big gap is in, what you'd call just basic digital learning. But again, there's an opportunity to introduce blockchain in that area. And it goes about how creative we are in doing that. But really simply, unfortunately, unless we are much more proactive in this area, that divide will just increase.
That's also some of my concerns, yes. I'm so sorry, not
Almudena, don't worry, it's very
Almudena, what is your thought on this? What is your do you also fear that people can, or a vast majority can, fall behind?
We've given it a thought because we are working in an EU-funded project called Diversity. It's about using a decentralized app for sustainability that citizens should be using blockchain. And the question was, are we leaving behind maybe elderly people or underskilled or poor people or socially disadvantaged people and all this? So I actually do think there is an issue, specifically a generational one. But I also think that specifically with regard to socially disadvantaged parts of the society, eventually we find new ways in which they can engage through technology and give their opinions, participate in polls, and give, and contribute to a common understanding in the society, and also eventually new economic models also for the future, sort of play to earn type of models, where eventually they don't need to do any more type of hard work or very physical work, and they can engage in the society and bring value to the society in a different way. And I think we're in the moment of being very creative in this respect, and there is eventually where university and the academia can also be of great contribution, because I think there is a lot to think behind that in terms of also economic models and social models, and we need to give it a thought. And I actually think there is not enough work being done there, whereas I think it's very important, and we have huge new possibilities.
Thank you. Wim, what is your opinion?
Quickly adding that I think it's also up to the governments to create an environment in which people are not necessarily forced to get familiar with new technology. I think government should leave all the options open in terms of interaction with administration, in terms of interaction with the healthcare apparatus, that people are not pushed in digital precarity.
Okay. Yeah, we have to prevent, or we have to build something, and I think this also should be or could be a task of INATBA to create, and that is something what was mentioned at the beginning, the awareness. This is needed, because if we push people into this kind of lagging, and we don't help them out, we'll have a split in the society, and the split is harmful for the overall society, for the overall economy. So therefore we need more. Before I summarize what we've talked about today, and I just see that time, is running, it's fleeting somehow, so that I also have a kind of a thought, idea or experience, would like to know what you think about this. So Joyce, you've mentioned long-time learning. This is required, and we have seen we have different kind of levels of how we learn. So we start at the school, there's a different kind of approach required to bring the content to the pupils. And then we are at the university, so here we do it also in a different way. And then after we graduated, then we are in business, we do our work. Here also education is required, but it looks different rather than this what we see at the university, for instance. And my question would be, as you all mentioned, that working on the curriculum. So we see, let's say, when we go to the to the schools and to university, there are curriculums, and how can we influence these curriculums? And what if, and that is an idea I would like to play a bit more around, what if it is possible that we in Europe create a system where we can go from one university to the other university and get the courses we like to, and get our credit points we like to, and achieve afterwards our bachelor or our master, so that we make it more open, more fluent, that students can really like go where they want to go and do the classes where they think that this could fit the best into their let's say intrinsic motivation, as well as to what they in future would like to do in business. So breaking up again this Bologna process we've seen 20 years ago, and coming back to more individualized education with let's say barrier-free, open access to all and everyone at the university. What do you think about this idea?
I think it's inspiring and very important, Katerina. And I think, you know, I know what's happening here in Ireland through European funding. You know, 7 universities have got together. Mutual recognition. I mean, it's mad that everybody has to do separate degrees and it's not recognized. Mutual recognition, stackability, as you say, that idea of micro-credentials, because the big problem is the lack of expertise in each university. Different universities have particular expertise. So if we could use that micro-credential model with portability, then we could travel anywhere in Europe and build up our degree at undergraduate and postgraduate level. Very helpful to industry, because that's what they're looking for, is that flexible delivery of knowledge at the appropriate time, at a pace that suits the learner. And I think that vision that you have is really important. And, you know, there's no reason why that cannot happen.
Thank you.
And I also think it would be fabulous, and also for long life learning. And I think we're actually building the tools to make that possible. We have now the EBSI, the European blockchain, building the certificates system, the IFS journey, and we have the proposal for AIDAS 2 with the EU ID wallet. And once we have the EU ID wallet, it would be much easier. And now we're also building the metaverses. And actually, we have built our own metaverse at Blockchain Intelligence Institute for our training courses. And I think this will also be, you know, this is like the future will be, that you can travel through your educational metaverse and go to the Humboldt University and take your course there, get your certificate. For instance, now our students go to the metaverse, buy an NFT, connect their wallet, do everything they need to do, connect with each other, get some information, blah, blah. And also they get the certificate through a POAP, into their wallets as a digital asset, for instance. This is what we are already doing. And if all universities have a similar system, and you can be at with your professor at the Humboldt University, and get your certificate that you've been there and get your credentials, and then add your curriculum digitally. I think we are now really building those tools that will make that possible in a quite near future. I think the problems are more the regulations around educational systems.
But it's up to us, I would like to say, to bringing the new flavor, to bringing the change, and to help people to accept and to embrace this. We are running out of time. Therefore, Wim, please excuse me when I'm not asking you about your opinion, but let me please quick sum up what is, I think, the learning of today, and correct me if I'm wrong or if I have forgotten something. But what we've I think, learned today, probably it could be of use and of worth to talk about an education taxonomy, which could also be implemented, these flexible kind of learning of education. We need to dive into the curriculum and understand how we can, build, for instance, also a curriculum which is blockchain related. Last but not least, to create the awareness that everyone is at least able to get a low entry to what the complexity of this technology is about, so that we start and spread the word and get more and more people at least talking about this, even when they start with buzzwording and no understanding. But with this, we then can hopefully get and trigger them. And that's also something, again, the awareness on each and every level, what we also have heard here during the conversation. And maybe, and that is also, I think, a task from us to think about who can help us, who can join us as a so-called influencer. So we not have to think about the, let's say, Kardashian ladies who are very big players on Instagram, but maybe there are other ones. And why not asking them, for instance, to understand, to help us? And we need, I think, these kind of influencer. We have to identify them, and we then are able to spread these wonderful ideas we've heard here in this call. And I would like to say thank you so much to my panelists. It was a great pleasure, and I could talk on and on and on. But before we stop here right now, there is one thing I have to hand it over to Bara, because Bara, you installed something we should go through, right?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you once again to all the panelists and the moderator and the speakers. I also wish there was more time for this topic, because it is actually very exciting. I would ask you or the audience to answer 3 poll questions, which we prepared for you. And we just wanted to know your opinion on, as was mentioned, INATBA is very active in the education skills development space. So we wanted to ask you 3 questions. This should take no longer than 3 minutes to complete. I hope you can see it on your screen. Please let me know if not.
Yes, it's there.
Perfect. So if you would please take the time to fill it out. Answer it. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Oh, we are still receiving some. Maybe I will leave it open just for now, but again, thank you so much for being here, for having the time. I would also like to invite you for our next panel, which starts in approximately half an hour at 5 o'clock Brussels time. Yes, it's 5 o'clock, and it's on the role of commercial banks in the blockchain industry. So we would love to welcome you for that panel, which starts in half an hour. And thank you so much again.
Maybe, Bara, please allow me to intervene, because we discussed many things today here on the panel, but probably there are some from the audience who would like to ask some question or would like to bring in their own opinion. We can include our audience. We have a bit of time left, probably.
Absolutely. If there is a question from the audience, please unmute yourself and feel free to ask or write a question in the chat. We'd be happy for your feedback.
We overrun them, sorry.
Or the discussion was exhausting enough in terms of the information.
Let me make it very quickly a little bit more exhausting. So I have been waiting for the opportunity, and this is the one, to just give a very quick preview on what we are writing about in our upcoming paper. I'm not going to enter into detail. I'm not going to name them all, but individual skills that we think will be required going forward. For blockchain is individual autonomy, independence, decentralized thinking, critical thinking and research skills, alternative business and operational models, development skills, crypto economics, organization design, and so on and so on. I'm stopping there. Thank you.
Yes, it's a never-ending thing. It's also very complex. You know, we just think we are in the region of education, but it's so much, and how you can educate, what you should do, what you should bring in. It's a pleasure to work on this topic.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, and have everyone a very nice rest of the day. And
thank you very much. Thank you, Katrina. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Almudena. Thank you,
Katrina.
Katrina.
Bye.
Bye-bye.